Most people think the most dangerous prisons are the ones you've heard about, the supermax units, the isolation wings, the legendary lockdown facilities. But according to Canadian correctional reports, some of the most volatile environments are found in medium-security prisons, places where movement exists, tensions mix, and rival histories collide in shared space. One correctional officer reportedly said in a media interview, "Maximum security is controlled danger. Medium security is unpredictable danger." After this story begins, you'll understand why. Before we go further, if you value real, fact-based true crime documentaries told with cinematic depth, like and subscribe now. Because what you're about to hear is rarely explained outside official reports. In Quebec's eastern townships sits Cowansville Institution, operated by Correctional Service Canada. On paper, it's classified as medium security. But according to public audits and news investigations, its inmate population has included individuals convicted of homicide, organized crime activity, armed robbery, and repeat violent offenses. Medium security does not mean low risk. It means calculated freedom inside controlled walls. Court records show that inmates transferred here often arrive from higher security levels after behavioral reviews, or from lower levels after violent incidents. That creates what correctional analysts call a compression zone, a place where different criminal backgrounds, gang affiliations, and psychological profiles overlap. And when that happens, stability becomes fragile. According to federal oversight documents, several Canadian medium security institutions, including Cowansville, have recorded internal incidents involving weapons made from everyday materials, coordinated assaults, and organized contraband networks. Not constant chaos, but constant tension, because inside these walls, everyone is trying to move forward. In official correctional classification systems, medium security sounds controlled, structured, almost transitional. But according to publicly available federal correctional guidelines and oversight reports, medium security facilities often hold some of the most complex inmate populations in the system. Not the lowest risk, not the highest control, the overlap. Many inmates placed in medium security are serving long sentences for violent crimes confirmed in court records, including aggravated assault, armed robbery, gang-related offenses, and homicide. Others are transferred down from maximum security after behavior reviews. Some are moved up from lower security after internal incidents. That means backgrounds collide. Former correctional staff interviewed by Canadian media outlets have described medium facilities as pressure zones, where inmates still have movement, work assignments, and group interaction, but carry histories that don't easily coexist. According to correctional policy documents, placement decisions are based on multiple factors: escape risk, institutional behavior, sentence length, and violence history. But paperwork doesn't erase rivalries, street affiliations, or past conflicts. Those follow people inside. News reports over the years have documented seizures of improvised weapons, organized contraband rings, and inmate group conflicts inside Canadian medium security institutions. Not constant riots, but recurring disruption risks. Investigations note that most incidents are prevented early through intelligence gathering and monitoring, but not all of them. One oversight summary described the challenge clearly. Medium security requires balance, enough freedom for rehabilitation, enough control to prevent escalation. And balance is fragile when trust is low. Because inside a mixed population facility, reputation matters, history matters, and sometimes unfinished business matters most. From the outside, the daily schedule inside a Canadian medium security prison looks structured, predictable, almost calm. Wake up, count, breakfast, work assignments, programs, yard movement, evening lock-in. According to publicly available correctional service schedules and inspection reports, routine is the backbone of institutional control. But routine is also where tension hides, because movement creates contact, and contact creates opportunity. Inmates in medium security typically participate in work programs, vocational training, maintenance crews, kitchen duty, and education units. Federal correctional reports show these programs are designed to reduce reoffending risk and improve post-release outcomes. On paper, it's rehabilitation in motion. In practice, it also means rival groups share space. Former officers speaking in news interviews have explained that most conflicts don't start in dramatic explosions. they build through small signals. A look held too long, a refusal to sit at a table, a quiet change in seating patterns. These details are often noted in internal observation logs, according to oversight reviews. Weapons are rarely obvious. According to Canadian prison seizure reports, many are improvised from permitted items, altered tools, sharpened plastic, modified metal fragments from maintenance areas. Discoveries are regularly documented in contraband summaries released through access to information requests. Most days pass without violence. That's the truth supported by incident statistics. But the risk never drops to zero, because the environment depends on human behavior, not just locked doors. One correctional training manual phrase appears again and again in public excerpts. Stability must be actively maintained. Inside medium security, nothing stays stable by accident. Inside Cowansville Institution, like in other Canadian federal facilities, the biggest threats are not always loud. According to public inspection summaries and correctional investigator reports, some of the most persistent dangers come from what isn't supposed to be there at all. Contraband, phones, drugs, unauthorized tools, data storage devices, modified electronics. These are not rumors. They appear regularly in publicly released seizure statistics and oversight briefings across Canada's federal prison system. News reports and government reviews explain that contraband enters through multiple channels. Intercepted mail attempts, perimeter throws, corrupt external contacts, and, in rare but documented cases, compromised staff. Most staff are not involved, and investigations consistently show the majority of seizures come from inmate-to-inmate trafficking networks built inside. That creates an underground economy. According to correctional case studies, contraband becomes currency. Debts form. Favors are traded. Protection is negotiated. And when debts cannot be paid, tensions rise. Oversight reports repeatedly note that many inmate conflicts are financially motivated, not emotional, not impulsive, transactional. Medium security facilities face a unique challenge. Inmates have more movement and program access than maximum security populations. That mobility supports rehabilitation, but it also creates more exchange points. Search operations are constant. Randomized cell checks, program area sweeps, mail screening, electronic detection tools. Public procurement records confirm investments in scanning technology across Canadian institutions in recent years. An officer quoted in a Canadian outlet summarized it simply. If it has value inside, someone will try to move it. And when something moves, someone profits. And when someone profits, someone else loses. According to publicly available classification policy from Correctional Service Canada, medium security institutions are designed to hold inmates who require structured control but can function in a shared environment. On paper, that sounds orderly. In reality, it produces one of the most complicated population mixes in the federal system. At Cowansville Institution, as reported in federal correctional summaries and regional news coverage, the inmate population has historically included people convicted of serious violent offenses, repeat felony crimes, and organized criminal activity. Not every inmate is high risk, but enough are that staff treat group dynamics as a constant variable. Criminology studies published in Canadian Justice Reviews describe this as a proximity risk effect. It means individuals with different criminal histories, gang ties, and personal conflicts live within daily interaction distance, sharing corridors, program rooms, and yard space. Transfers make this even more volatile. According to correctional transfer procedures, inmates can be reassigned between institutions after behavioral reviews, security reassessments, or population balancing. That means someone arriving today may bring unresolved disputes from another facility. These conflicts are sometimes documented in court records when later incidents are prosecuted, though many are resolved internally through separation orders. Former staff have told reporters that tension often rises not when a known rival arrives, but when alliances shift quietly. Seating patterns change. Recreation partners change. Program attendance changes. Those small social movements are considered early warning signs in correctional monitoring practices. Because inside a shared movement prison, relationships are never neutral. They are strategic, and sometimes they are temporary ceasefires. Most people imagine prison security as fences, locks, and cameras. But according to public safety briefings and correctional oversight reports, The most effective safety tool inside a medium-security prison isn't hardware. It's intelligence. Within facilities like Cowansville Institution, security relies heavily on structured information gathering, documented behavior patterns, monitored communications, incident reports, and risk assessments. These are handled by specialized staff units commonly referred to in public documents as security intelligence officers. Their role is not dramatic. It is methodical. According to Canadian correctional publications and union interviews given to news outlets, intelligence staff review phone records, flagged mail, grievance patterns, and sudden behavioral shifts. A canceled program request, a sudden unit transfer request, an unusual spike in canteen purchases. Small details can signal larger problems forming. Court records from prosecuted prison incidents across Canada show that many planned assaults and contraband operations were disrupted before they happened because of early detection. Not all, but many. Prevention rarely becomes headlines. Intervention does. Oversight reports from the Office of the Correctional Investigator have repeatedly emphasized that information flow between staff units is critical in medium-security environments where inmate movement is higher. When communication breaks down, risk rises. One publicly quoted correctional trainer explained it this way: "You don't wait for violence. You watch for preparation." Because in a mixed-risk population, serious incidents almost never appear without warning signs first. The challenge is recognizing them in time. In official policy documents from Correctional Service Canada, rehabilitation programs are described as one of the strongest predictors of successful reintegration after release. Education, vocational trades, behavioral therapy, and substance abuse programs are all part of the structured system inside medium-security prisons like Cowansville Institution. But inside the walls, programs are more than rehabilitation tools. They are leverage. Access to programs often affects privilege levels, job assignments, movement eligibility, and transfer recommendations, all documented factors in correctional case management reports. That makes program placement valuable. And anything valuable inside a prison environment can become a source of pressure. According to correctional oversight reviews and media interviews with former staff, competition for limited program slots can quietly increase tension between inmates. Not open conflict, but influence campaigns. Favor trading, social maneuvering, who sits where, who works where, who gets recommended. Job assignments matter too. Kitchen roles, maintenance crews, cleaning teams, and workshop placements provide structured time and, in some cases, modest earnings credited to inmate accounts, as confirmed in federal corrections policy guides. These positions can improve internal reputation and case file evaluations. Researchers in Canadian justice studies have noted that structured activity reduces incident rates overall. That's supported by published correctional outcome data. But they also caution that program systems create internal hierarchies, and hierarchies create power dynamics. One correctional case study summarized it clearly: when opportunity is limited, value increases. And when value increases, pressure follows. In Canada's federal correctional system, transfers are routine, but their impact inside a prison can be anything but routine. According to publicly available policy manuals from Correctional Service Canada, inmate transfers happen for multiple verified reasons: security reassessment, behavior reviews, program needs, medical requirements, or population balancing. On paper, it's administrative. Inside the institution, it's disruptive. At facilities such as Cowansville Institution, transfer arrivals are treated as high-attention events. Not because every incoming inmate is dangerous, but because unknown variables always raise risk. Staff review files, separation alerts, known associate warnings, and court-documented co-accused histories before housing decisions are finalized. According to correctional inspection summaries and union interviews published in Canadian media, even a single new arrival can shift inmate dynamics. Someone may arrive with a past gang affiliation noted in court proceedings. Someone else may have testified in a prior case. Someone may carry unpaid debts from another institution, details sometimes referenced in later court cases when internal conflicts are prosecuted. Most of the time, nothing happens. But intelligence units don't measure most of the time. They measure possibility. Former officers have explained in documented interviews that the first 2 weeks after a transfer are watched closely. Changes in movement patterns, meal seating changes, program withdrawal, increased phone activity. These are considered behavioral indicators in correctional monitoring models. Because a transfer is never just movement. It's a reshuffling of relationships, loyalties, and unresolved history. And sometimes, tension arrives on the same bus. Not every conflict inside a prison becomes violence. In fact, according to Canadian correctional oversight reports, most inmate disputes move through formal channels long before they reach physical confrontation. The system is designed that way to redirect tension into procedure. Inside facilities like Cowansville Institution, disagreements between inmates or between inmates and staff can trigger documented internal processes, incident reports, disciplinary hearings, separation orders, and grievance filings. These procedures are described in publicly available federal correctional policy manuals. When a rule is allegedly broken, a charge is written. When a charge is written, a review follows. According to published correctional guidelines, inmates have the right to a formal disciplinary process that includes written notice and a hearing before sanctions are applied. Sanctions can include loss of privileges, restricted movement, or program removal, all documented outcomes in oversight summaries. Serious cases may later appear in court records if criminal charges result. There is also the grievance system. Federal reports show that inmate grievances number in the thousands each year across Canada's prison network. Complaints range from program access disputes to safety concerns to housing conflicts. Investigative reviews have noted that while many grievances are resolved internally, unresolved patterns sometimes trigger external audits. Former correctional administrators have told reporters that paperwork is not just bureaucracy, it's early intervention. A written complaint can signal rising friction. A pattern of reports can reveal emerging risk. Because when conflict becomes official, it leaves a trail. And inside prison systems, trails are watched closely. Most incidents inside Canadian prisons never make the news. That's not secrecy, it's scale. According to publicly released correctional statistics, the majority of disruptions are contained internally through response protocols, disciplinary measures, and separation procedures. But sometimes, an incident crosses a threshold. When that happens, it leaves the institution and enters the public record. At facilities including Cowansville Institution, confirmed incidents that result in serious injury, criminal charges, or major contraband seizures may later appear in court filings or regional news reports. These are factual, documented events, not rumors, because once charges are filed, documentation becomes public. According to Canadian media coverage patterns and oversight briefings, the most commonly reported prison incidents involve coordinated contraband operations, organized group conflicts, or assaults that require external investigation. Not frequent, but significant enough to trigger review. When a major event occurs, response follows a layered protocol outlined in public safety manuals: immediate containment, medical evaluation, evidence preservation, and independent reporting. Specialized response teams, confirmed in federal procurement and training documents, are deployed when standard staffing isn't sufficient. Lockdowns may be ordered. Movement stops. Programs pause. Searches expand. Oversight agencies, including the Correctional Investigator's Office, may later examine how the situation developed and how it was handled. Their findings sometimes appear in annual public reports, which are accessible to anyone. One correctional analyst summarized it in a published review. The public only sees the rare failures. They don't see the hundreds of quiet preventions. But when prevention fails, even once, the outside world hears about it. What happens inside a prison does not stay completely hidden, at least not in Canada's federal system. According to publicly accessible government frameworks, federal institutions are subject to independent oversight, external audits, and annual investigations. That oversight structure exists specifically to examine safety conditions, inmate treatment, and incident patterns. One of the key watchdog bodies is the Office of the Correctional Investigator, an independent ombudsman office that reviews complaints and systemic issues within federal corrections. Their annual reports, which are publicly released, analyze incident trends, use of force reviews, grievance volumes, and institutional risk factors across facilities, including medium security environments. These reports don't usually name individual inmates unless cases are already public through court action, but they do reveal patterns. According to multiple published annual reviews, Recurring themes across Canadian medium security institutions include contraband pressure, mental health resource strain, population complexity, and staffing challenges. Not constant crisis, but persistent operational stress points. Audits and parliamentary committee hearings, also public record, have examined how classification tools are applied, how transfers are managed, and how incident responses are evaluated after the fact. When failures are identified, recommendations follow. Some are implemented quickly, others take years. Correctional policy experts quoted in Canadian news analyses often stress that oversight reports are not attack documents. They are diagnostic tools. They exist to surface risk before it grows. Because in corrections, what gets measured gets corrected, and what gets ignored repeats. One of the most documented pressure points inside Canada's federal prison system, confirmed in multiple public reports, is mental health demand. Medium security institutions like Cowansville Institution are not psychiatric hospitals, but according to oversight findings, they increasingly house inmates with diagnosed mental health needs. Annual reports from the Office of the Correctional Investigator have repeatedly noted that a significant portion of the federal inmate population requires some level of psychological support, ranging from anxiety and trauma disorders to more serious clinical conditions confirmed through intake assessments. That reality changes how a prison operates day to day. According to publicly available correctional healthcare policy summaries, institutions are required to provide access to mental health services, including assessments, counseling, and clinical referrals. Medium security sites typically have on-site health teams and visiting specialists. But oversight reports have also stated, carefully and consistently, that demand often exceeds available resources. Former correctional staff interviewed in Canadian media have explained that untreated or poorly managed mental health stress can increase rule violations, conflict risk, and program failure, not because inmates are more dangerous, but because they are less stable under pressure. Case reviews published after major incidents sometimes list mental health strain as a contributing factor, never an excuse, but a condition that shaped behavior, according to those reports. Correctional experts use a specific phrase in policy discussions. Behavior is situational. Inside prison walls, situation is everything. And when mental strain rises in a shared environment, staff attention rises with it. In public correctional research and court-documented cases across Canada, one fact appears consistently. Prisons don't just contain individuals, they contain networks. Some are formal, some are loose, some are temporary. But group alignment inside medium security institutions is real and widely acknowledged in correctional literature. At facilities such as Cowansville Institution, inmates arrive with prior associations noted in court records, co-accused in criminal cases, documented gang ties, or known organized crime links confirmed during sentencing. Correctional intake assessments, according to published policy frameworks, record these affiliations for security planning. But not every alliance is official. Oversight reports and criminology studies describe what are called situational alliances, temporary partnerships formed around shared language, region, culture, or mutual benefit. These are not always criminal in nature. Sometimes they are social survival structures, but they still affect movement, seating, recreation, and trust. According to Canadian correctional intelligence publications and media interviews with former officers, staff monitor group clustering patterns closely. Sudden shifts, who eats together, who stops attending certain programs, who changes yard routines, are considered early indicators of possible tension. It's important to be precise here. Not every group is a gang, and not every alliance leads to conflict. Public reports emphasize that many inmates actively avoid group politics altogether. But documented cases show that when organized groups do operate inside institutions, their influence can shape contraband flow, intimidation patterns, and internal disputes. One correctional researcher wrote in a published justice journal, "Power inside prison is rarely declared. It is observed, and what is observed is always being measured. In medium security prisons, not all safety comes from barriers you can see. Some of the most important security measures exist on paper and in databases. They're called separation orders." According to publicly available policy from Correctional Service Canada, separation orders are formal instructions that certain inmates must be kept apart at all times. The reasons are documented and specific, co-accused in the same criminal case, confirmed rival group members, prior verified threats, or past in-custody conflicts recorded in incident reports. At institutions like Cowansville Institution, these orders affect everything: housing placement, program scheduling, yard rotation, work assignments, even medical visit timing. Two inmates under a separation order may live in the same prison, but never be allowed in the same corridor. Oversight reviews and court-related incident files show that when separation orders fail, due to miscommunication or rapid movement changes, risk increases quickly. That's why movement logs, ID checks, and escort confirmations are emphasized repeatedly in correctional training materials released publicly. Former staff speaking in Canadian media interviews have described separation management as a constant coordination task. Not dramatic, precise. Names are flagged. Alerts are attached to files. Movement lists are cross-checked before doors open. Most inmates never know how many silent boundaries exist around them. They just notice that certain doors never open at the same time. Certain schedules never overlap. Certain faces never appear twice in the same place. Because in a mixed-risk institution, prevention often looks invisible, but it is always intentional. To the public, prison sentences look like fixed blocks of time. But according to publicly available federal correctional policy, release is not just a date. It's a process that begins long before the gate opens. Inside medium-security facilities like Cowansville Institution, that process is structured, reviewed, and documented step by step. It's called case management. Under guidelines published by Correctional Service Canada, each federally sentenced inmate is assigned a case management team that tracks behavior, program participation, work performance, and incident history. These records are not informal notes. They are formal reports that influence transfer eligibility and parole review outcomes. Program completion matters. Disciplinary history matters. Psychological assessments matter. All of it appears in case files referenced during parole decisions, according to publicly described procedures. When eligibility approaches, a separate authority becomes involved, the Parole Board of Canada. Their hearings and decisions are governed by published legal standards. Some outcomes are summarized publicly, especially in higher-profile cases already on record through courts or media coverage. Former correctional officials have explained in documented interviews that the months before a potential release can be tense inside an institution. Expectations rise. Anxiety rises. Behavior sometimes improves, occasionally worsens, according to oversight case reviews. Because release is not just freedom, it's evaluation. A final judgment built from years of recorded behavior. And inside prison walls, everyone knows the file never forgets. There is a category inside Canadian prisons that rarely gets public attention but appears regularly in correctional policy and oversight reports: voluntary and involuntary protection placement. It exists for one reason: documented safety risk. According to published operational guidelines from Correctional Service Canada, inmates can be moved into protective housing when verified threats, prior case involvement, or documented conflicts create a credible danger. This can include inmates who testified in court, individuals linked to rival criminal groups, or those flagged after intelligence reviews. At facilities like Cowansville Institution, protection placement is handled through formal assessment, not rumor, not preference. Case files, incident reports, and intelligence notes are reviewed before decisions are made. But protection status carries a social cost inside prison culture. Criminology studies and correctional interviews published in Canadian media describe a consistent pattern. Many inmates resist requesting protection even when risk indicators exist. Not because the threat isn't real, but because separation can affect reputation, movement, and program access. Oversight case summaries have documented situations where inmates initially refused protection placement, only to accept it later after documented escalation signals. Each case is handled individually, based on verified risk factors. Protection units are not punishment units. That distinction appears clearly in public correctional directives. They are preventive controls, designed to reduce conflict probability through separation and monitoring. One correctional policy paper put it plainly: safety sometimes requires distance, even when pride says otherwise. Every system you've heard about so far, intelligence gathering, separation orders, program control, incident response, depends on one variable more than any other: staff judgment. According to public workforce reports and parliamentary correctional reviews, frontline officers are the single most critical safety layer inside Canada's federal prisons, including facilities like Cowansville Institution. Policy manuals published by Correctional Service Canada outline procedures in detail, but procedures don't walk ranges. People do. Officers are trained to observe behavior shifts, document risk indicators, verify movement lists, and intervene early when patterns change. Former officers interviewed in Canadian news features have described the job as controlled unpredictability. Most shifts are routine: counts, escorts, program supervision, searches. But unpredictability is always present, not constant crisis, but constant readiness. Public labor reports and oversight hearings have also highlighted staffing pressure as a recurring operational challenge across multiple institutions. Absences, overtime demand, and recruitment gaps have all been documented topics in federal review sessions. When staffing levels tighten, workload increases, and attention must stretch further. Training standards, confirmed through public recruitment and certification documents, include de-escalation methods, legal authority limits, emergency coordination, and communication protocols. Force is regulated, reviewed, and reportable under federal rules. Every serious intervention generates paperwork and supervisory review. One correctional trainer said in a published seminar summary, "Tools matter. Technology matters. But awareness matters more." Because in a medium security prison, the difference between routine and incident is often recognized, or missed, by a single human decision. A lockdown is one of the most serious operational measures inside a Canadian federal prison, and according to publicly available correctional emergency procedures, it is never declared casually. When it happens at a medium security facility like Cowansville Institution, it means normal movement has been stopped because a verified risk threshold has been crossed. Not a rumor, not tension, a confirmed trigger. Correctional policy manuals released by Correctional Service Canada describe lockdown triggers as including credible threat intelligence, major contraband discoveries, coordinated conflict risk, or serious rule violations requiring full search operations. News reports covering past Canadian prison lockdowns show the same pattern: containment first, investigation second. When a lockdown is called, doors secure. Program areas clear. Work assignments stop. Movement lists are canceled. According to documented procedures, counts are re-verified and unit-by-unit status checks begin. Specialized search teams may be deployed, as confirmed in public correctional training and procurement documents. Most lockdowns are precautionary and temporary. Oversight summaries show many last hours. Some extend longer, depending on investigation scope. During that period, searches expand across cells, common areas, and workspaces. Every item is checked against authorized property lists. Former staff have explained in published interviews that lockdowns are methodical, not chaotic. The goal is control and verification, not punishment. From the outside, a lockdown looks like silence. Inside, it's intense activity behind closed doors. Because when uncertainty rises, movement stops until certainty returns. Ask the average person what medium security prison means, and the answer is usually the same: lower danger, fewer risks, easier time. But according to publicly available correctional classifications and oversight reports, that assumption is incomplete. Medium security does not mean low threat. It means managed threat. Facilities like Cowansville Institution operate under a structured balance model confirmed in policy documents from Correctional Service Canada. More inmate movement than maximum security, more controls than minimum security. More access to programs, but still constant supervision. More opportunity, and more interaction risk. Public oversight reports and criminology research repeatedly note that medium security environments are often the most dynamic in the system. That's because they contain inmates at different behavioral stages, some improving, some unstable, some recently transferred after documented incidents, others preparing for parole review. News coverage of prison incidents across Canada shows a consistent pattern. When serious internal conflicts occur, they are just as likely, sometimes more likely, to happen in medium facilities than minimum ones. Not because the system is failing, but because population complexity is higher. Another public misconception is that rehabilitation and security compete. Correctional policy experts say the opposite in published justice studies. Structured rehabilitation reduces long-term risk, but only when security remains consistent. Medium security is not relaxed. It is calibrated. Freedom exists, but measured. Trust exists, but verified. And safety exists, but maintained daily, not assumed. From the outside, Cowansville Institution looks controlled, quiet, almost distant from public life. No dramatic towers in every photo. No headlines every week. Just fences, buildings, schedules, and systems. But as confirmed through public policy documents, oversight reports, and court-verified incident records, what happens inside a medium security prison is never simple. It is a constant negotiation between risk and rehabilitation. According to published frameworks from Correctional Service Canada, institutions like this are designed to do two things at the same time: protect the public and prepare inmates for lawful return to society. Those goals sometimes align smoothly. Sometimes they strain against each other. Oversight findings from the Office of the Correctional Investigator have repeatedly emphasized a central truth. Prisons are not static environments. Populations change. Threat patterns change. Mental health demand changes. Staff resources change. Policies adapt in response. The public often asks whether facilities like this are too strict or not strict enough. Correctional experts tend to answer differently. In published justice studies, they frame the real measure as outcome: reduced reoffending, controlled incidents, verified accountability, documented improvement. Most inmates will eventually be released. That is a statistical fact in federal sentencing data, which means what happens inside matters outside. Records follow them. Program results follow them. Behavior history follows them. Medium security is not the middle of danger. It is the crossroads of decision. And every day inside, choices are being recorded by staff, by systems, and by time itself. This story is a dramatized adaptation inspired by real events. Some names, places, and details have been changed for privacy. If you want more fact-based, cinematic true crime prison documentaries like this, subscribe and stay with the channel, because the next story goes even deeper.